Last Thursday's landmark Supreme Court ruling, which upheld the financial autonomy of Nigeria's 774 local governments, underscores the unique character of this country's democratic journey since 1999. While Nigerians exhibit many hallmarks of a modern democracy, such as periodic election, it still falls short in genuinely reflecting the will and the aspiration of its people. Corruption persists as a pervasive issue, corroding trust in governance, while ethnic and religious affiliations often overshadow policy discussions in the political sphere. Now, despite these challenges, democratic institutions remain resilient, and the active participation of citizens provide a beacon of hope for steady democratic progress. Experts are, however, unanimous that the road to a more robust democratic values involves reinforcing institutions, combating corruption, and promoting inclusive economic development and national unity. We're now being joined in our Abuja studios by a political analyst and management expert, Opeyemi Alabi, for further insights into Nigeria's democratic future. A lot will say that Nigeria is still going through its infancy in democracy. Some would look and say, if you have a child that is well over 5 decades, you cannot say that child is still an infant. Try to help us balance these two arguments in terms of where we are right now and where we should be. I don't know, Opeyemi, if you can hear me.
Hello, Aaron. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I asked the question. I don't know if you heard me. Some will look at Nigeria and say our democracy is still in the infancy stage, while some will look at it closely and say that no, that we've had enough time to be able to perfect this democracy. After all, we are borrowing leaves from developed climes. Help us balance this thing as to where we are right now and where we should be.
All right. Thank you. That's a quite insightful question. Our democracy in Nigeria is not all that young, because if you take a look at our progress and our movement from 1999 up until now, if you look at the age of adulthood in terms of biological age is 18. If you calculate the 1999 to 2024, then we are looking at 25 years. So we can't really say our democracy is at the infancy level. However, it leaves a lot of room to be desired. So in terms of the balance, this is where I see democracy, apart from the definition of it being a governmental system of choice of the people, by the people, and for the people. Most people, when they talk about democracy, they think about just electoral phase alone. Now we are beyond the election. We are talking about governance. How inclusive are we in the governance of the nation? Like I normally say, that the citizens are supposed to be the ombudsmen of the nation, meaning that we are more like the end user feedback mechanism for government to understand if their policies are actually working and hitting the target or not. But I'm going to piggyback to what the chief whip of the Senate said a couple of weeks ago, or even last week, where he alluded to the fact that this particular government we are in has a closed door policy. You know, coming from the height of the Senate like that, somebody like the chief whip saying something like that, then you think about what's the hope of the common man when the chief whip of the Senate can say that the presidency has a closed door policy. They cannot access him. So how then can the president take feedback on whether the policies he has instituted are actually working or not? We take a look at, since he's been office since last year, he's made some bold and strident moves. But the question of the whole matter is, are we in a democracy that is all inclusive? Are we, because it's supposed to be a confederacy of ideas. We are supposed to, Yoruba will say that it's not a one-man job. So when you are a president, when you are the leader of a nation, it's supposed to be you are taking moves from the angle of the presidency, and then you balance it. You make it a more of a congruent effort when you listen to the feedback of the people. But when we look at what we have right now currently, because every regime, every administration since 1999 has been characteristically different in terms of attitude towards the people. When we look at the one we are in currently, I don't really think that feedback is one of their major strong points, because when you give them a feedback that is reflective of what you want to say, it's easy for them to politicize your view and say maybe you're sponsored by one political party or the other, or make it a tribal, religious, or an ethnic issue, which doesn't really speak well. So I really want to say this. We've tried, we are on our way. I won't say that we are where we are supposed to be yet, but we have to open the doors of the presidency to include the feedback of the citizens so that they can truly know exactly what is going on. So that is one of the areas in which I believe that currently, because I'm going to speak towards this administration, currently they are defaulting. The feedback system, the feedback taking system is not really congruent and solidified. And I strongly want to hope that the presidency has not been locked within a chamber of an echo chamber of yes men who tell him what he wants to hear. So that's what I want to say about that.
All right. The president just celebrated 1 year in office a few weeks ago, and a lot of people have mixed reactions to his time in office. Some have said it's a work in progress. Some have said it's been poor. Some are saying there's hunger in the land. Some are saying the future is bright. But the presidency keeps insisting that we would all benefit from this whole renewed hope agenda. For you, looking at it from a particular spectrum or a prism of political analysis, so to speak, do you think, how would you rate how far the president has come in the last maybe 390 days?
Okay, thank you for the question. I normally say the word Nigerian is not a monolith. When we say the word Nigerian, we have elite Nigerians, we have wealthy Nigerians, we have average Nigerians, and then we have the masses. So there might be some group of people that are really benefiting from this government in terms of developmental processes. But if we take a look at it from the perspective of the masses, which make up of 90% in terms of economic and social standing of this country, they make up 90% of the population. We look at inflation, food inflation, inflation in transportation cost, they can't really say anything. As long as it's not impactful on their life positively, they can't really say anything in terms of development. Now, to a few businessmen like myself, we could say, okay, maybe the government has made 1 or 2 policies that has been beneficial to our particular kind of business, but that does not extrapolate and map over 90% of the people that they are still earning what they used to earn. That is the ones that still have jobs. And then the bracket of inflation has really eaten into their income to the point that they can barely, make it alive in a day. So it's still going back to what I was saying, which is a feedback mechanism system. I think we are at this point where, so that we will not become a Kenya all of a sudden, we are at the point where the president needs to organize a town hall meeting so that he can speak with the stakeholders. Youth, basically, I said it the last time I was here, that the median age of Nigeria is 19 years. What does that mean?
Permit me to come in at this point, because
go ahead,
some people around the president that have been speaking for the president that are pro renewed hope are saying that the last administration left the nation in disarray, that they are just helping mop up and gather all that has been scattered all over the place in terms of infrastructure, in terms of spending, borrowing, in terms of when you look at government holistically. They say the last administration left a little to be desired, that the president is trying to fix the wrongs of the past administration, that probably he needs time.
Okay, I like that you highlighted that, Mr. Kerejola. That has always been the go-to of every administration, is to blame the former administration for 4 years and then campaign for the next 4 years and say what they could not do in their first term, they're going to consolidate on the second term. That is actually a cliche. We are done with that. It's just to beat the people's consciousness into a pop of stupidity. How come you took the job when you know that you cannot handle it? And then you cannot also say that you want to absolve yourself from the past government when you are literally the Abinja who brought them. So I'm not going to really stay on that excuse that they might want to give. Let's proceed. Now that we are here, what are we going to do? Enough of the blame game. The blame game is more like a psychological operations to beat the people's imagination, so that I normally say one thing, just to quickly interject my thoughts with this. What is the price of bad governance? As long as there's no price of bad governance in Nigeria, then people can do whatever they want to do with impunity. After all, they will just come back and say, we tried our best. But what if your best is not good enough and you were being paid while trying your best and you were making things worse? If you're in the school and you try your best and you fail, the penalty is that you might repeat a class. If you're in a company and they do your monthly performance review and you are not up to par, you might be sacked. But what is the punishment for bad governance? Let's take a look at it. They're going to tell you to vote them out when we know that the electoral system has been literally commoditized because we are essentially in a plutocracy. So I'm not going to dance to the tune of we are blaming the past government. Now that we are here, exactly what do you want to do? What are your policies? What do you want to do? How do you want to go about it? And how can you include everybody while doing it? And I said something that is extremely important. I said the word plutocracy. For the people that don't understand what it means the government of the elite by the elite and for the elite. And if you take a look at our political spectrum across all strata, for you to even contest in the House of Rep, you must have at least 10 million to buy a form. How many Nigerians can boast of 10 million naira in their accounts? You understand, to participate in politics, which means that there is a level of capitalization that you must attain for you to be involved in political and governance structure in Nigeria, which is not supposed to be so, because politics is supposed to be run by people that have ideas, not necessarily just brilliant people, but people that have innovative ideas to solve problems. And when we don't have an open door policy to include everybody across board, then it becomes more like a cartel or a cabal. So I don't want us to get to a point where we push Nigerians to the wall while lying to them that, oh, it's a matter of it's what happened, the past government didn't do well, and we are trying our best to mop up all we can. But I'm going to tell you something as well. I don't like the nebulous way the government runs itself. Yoruba will say more like you owe the people the duty of accountability and transparency. There was a case of what's this? Just pardon me. Let me gather this in a second. Stamp duty. An House of Rep member, a former one, came out and said the amount of stamp duty generated in Nigeria from 2013, that is the levy on electronic transfers, till date, can solve all the issues of our debt. But nothing has really been said about that. Obona Obla, special advisor to Buhari on prosecution, came out and said there were two individuals that they found sitting. One was sitting on $20 billion. The other was sitting on $69 billion. You know, he mentioned their names on an MIC podcast just a few weeks ago. So what steps have been taken towards that? So when we have utterances from even people in hallowed chambers of the government, of the past government,
all right,
saying things that we really need to do to solve our problems.
Mr. Alabi, as we try to wrap it up briefly.
All right, sir.
As we try to wrap it up because of time.
Yes.
We are where we are right now, and people are still groaning. And someone like a Governor Makinde, for example, is saying that rather than focus on several other issues that are bedeviling this democracy, that the most important thing is to just help people feed. How do we balance forward movement and also ameliorating poverty at the moment?
The foundation of poverty is when people don't have access to food, which is one of the most basic needs of man. So right now we see a lot of inflation. There's no food for common man anymore. There's absolutely no food for common man. The price of gari and beans in the market is basically what so many people cannot afford at their salary scale. So what I will prefer to the government as solution is, let's talk about food subsidy. A government like UK government subsidize at least 40% of food in their country. So why can't Nigeria do the same? So let's talk about having subsidies on certain items in the market. You understand? And having market enforcers to enforce these prices so that there won't be a form of exploitative run by the people selling food in the market. So when we can do that, if we can do that, then we can now talk about progress. But right now, that is exactly where we are. A lot of people are finding it hard to even cater for their meals at their current salary level. So I believe the government owe a duty of food security to the people. Let's start from subsidizing food. The Minister of State for Agriculture 2 months ago said something. He said, we don't have food scarcity. What we have is shortage of customers because most people cannot even afford to buy the food in the market. So he said it in his own words that the buying power of the masses has been assassinated. So if that be the case, let the government look for a way to balance this out by subsidizing food. That's what I'm going to prefer as a solution for that.
I want to say thank you very much for that.
Only then can we discuss about progress.
Oh, okay. Let's hope that the government can subsidize commodities in the market, and certainly maybe the ripple effect or the trickle down effect will just help people rise above where they are right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Opeyemi Alabi, for your time here on Arise News Now.